in your book, there is, this is all laid out in your book, okay? So you can follow along, and you can take some extra notes on top of it if it'll help you remember it. Okay, basically how this will look on the test. In my regular government class, we have 6 steps. You have 13. They have to write an essay. You don't. So basically on the test, guys, there's going to be like 5 or 6 2-point short answers and 4, 5 or 6 1-point short answers on how a bill becomes a law. So this is something you want to pay attention to, and be sure to ask questions. When I'm done going through this, I'm going to spend some time talking about how the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, became law in 2009, because some of the ways the bill got passed are pretty interesting, and some events that surrounded that are interesting. So that'll be like a review by going over the Affordable Care Act. It'll be a review of what we talked about today. Good? So you'll get it a couple times. Well, 3 times with the video that you just watched. Yes? Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the top of page 75, these are different powers laid out in Article 1 of the Constitution, Section 8. And at the very top is to introduce and pass new laws. We talked about some of these other things in here, like the copyrights on there. But those are generally things you would want to be familiar with as far as like what powers they have. And then the last thing we talked about yesterday, guys, oversight. So as I just like this term, like the NSA is watching us. Who is watching the NSA? And the answer is Congress. They play a role at overseeing what the executive branch is doing. Okay, it's an important part of Congress. All right, so let's look at how a bill becomes a law or not. All right, so anybody, you, me, the president, can write a bill, but only members of Congress can introduce a bill. Okay, so the president every year generally submits a budget to Congress. Okay, now he can't introduce it. It's got to be a member of Congress that does that for him. Okay, so generally he'll have some allies in Congress that will propose that. Obviously, it's not going to end up like what the president sends over. So the member of Congress who actually introduces or proposes the law is usually called the bill's what? Sponsor. Okay. So if you go to Washington, D.C. and you're like, hey, I want to change something about, my home district, you write a bill, you introduce it, you're the sponsor. Now, if you can get other members of the House or Senate to co-sponsor that with you, you can have many co-sponsors. Okay, the more the merrier. Right? Then, just kind of describing some of the things that go through the legislative process here. Congress considers 4 basic types of bills. A bill which would be a law that will apply to the whole nation. You have these things that are called simple resolutions, concurrent resolutions, and joint resolutions. Okay, these resolutions generally are not laws, okay, but an adoption of a certain policy. So what is today? The November 18th? Yes. It's National Lollipop Day. Well, you'd pass a simple resolution or a concurrent resolution to name November 8th Lollipop Day.
That went through Congress. I thought you were being serious.
No. Okay, so like June 14th is what?
Flag Day.
Flag Day. Okay, that is not a law, it's a resolution. Does that make sense? Of adopting a procedure or something like that. Okay, so a simple one is an adoption probably of a new procedure within the legislative process, Concurrent would be both houses agreeing on a resolution, and then a joint resolution. This deals with temporary matters. Okay, so sometimes, guys, Congress makes mistakes, and they pass a bill, send it to the president signs it, and then they realize, oh, we misspelled that word, or we forgot to put that in. Okay, so you would pass a joint resolution to amend that bill that has already been passed. Does that make sense? So it's an agreement by both sides, joint resolution. Good? Okay. Then every bill that is introduced gets a first reading, it's entered into the congressional record, and it's assigned a number. Okay, so if you're a member of Congress and you introduce a bill, guys, that stays in the congressional record from here to eternity. Okay, there's a record of that bill. Okay? Now, what's going to happen next? It's going to get assigned to committee. Now, in the House, who gets to assign bills to committees? Speaker. And in the Senate? The Senate Majority Leader. Okay, we'll send those to a committee. Now, we know the importance of this, right? Because if the committee chair
likes the bill, it'll get.
Huh? No.
I was just checking where this thing.
I was just making sure you were with us.
I was listening to you, but then I started looking.
Okay, well, I stopped and you didn't look up or anything.
I was listening.
Okay. This is important. So, okay, so yes, if the committee chair doesn't like the bill, he does what with it? Pigeonholes it, okay? If he likes the bill or she likes the bill, they put it on the calendar, okay? Now, all bills and resolutions are referred to one or more House or Senate committees, assigned by the majority leader in the Senate and Speaker in the House okay? For instance, the Affordable Care Act was sent to 11 different committees in the House. It was 2,600 pages, so.
2,600. Did it get on all that calendar?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh.
This is 2009, and the Democrats controlled both houses. Nancy was the Speaker.
Wait, who had to read?
How many people actually read the bill before they voted on it?
No, I'm talking about the starting. Like, it's supposed to be read.
First reading.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know if they read the whole bill. It's like,
They just read the abstract.
like a summary, yeah.
So what gets stuffed into the, like, page 1,900?
Well, it's just the reading, that there's gonna be a lot more work on it, if it even makes it in, on the committee calendar.
Yeah, I know, but it's stuffed into the back page.
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah, that's why you hire staff to read it, because most members don't take the time to read it.
Well, still, who's gonna read 2,600 pages?
Listen, Lipinski, if you work for me and I'm a member of Congress and I said, you got the weekend to read these 2,600 pages, or you and your buddy, you got half of it, you got the other half. I need you to report back to me on everything in this bill that you don't think I would like. Because you know what I like and what I don't like. That's your job. I'm paying you $40,000 a year to do that. Hey man, you're just out of law school. You're working for a member of Congress. Go to work, okay? Because some other law school student that just got out wrote what you're going to be reading. Because the members of Congress don't actually write this crap. Most of them don't. They got to make appearances. They got other things to do. You guys, we have to be realistic here. Okay? Now, you do have some members of Congress that are what you call policy wonks. Okay, that like are really into this stuff, that really like writing legislation and so forth. Like you?
I was just going to ask who
Rand Paul, I think, is one, from Kentucky. I mean, he's very critical of, government expansion and so forth, so he reads all that stuff. And, usually it's the people that are like opposed to legislation that do a lot of the, you know what I mean? That don't want government to expand. The ones that want government to expand, it's pretty loose. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, but there's a lot of people in Washington that have that job, to be a wonk. Yeah. A wonk. Okay. I imagine Ava's dad has written some legislation before for Tati or Brownback or whoever he's worked for. So, okay. Then committee actions. Okay, this is where we have most bills die in committee. Pigeonhole sits on the committee chair's desk, never gets looked at. Now, the full body can force a bill out of committee and send it to a different committee with what's called a discharge petition. This rarely happens, okay? Now, the committee chair takes the bill, puts it on the calendar, and if he likes it, he's going to send it to subcommittee, okay? And at the subcommittee level, this is where you get a lot of the real work done here, okay? You've got hearings, okay? So subcommittee review, they will study the bill and have public hearings, okay? So when we talk about hearings, look at a hearing room in Congress. They all kind of look different, but a lot of them look like this. You're going to bring in people to testify. So you've got, so how many was 7, 13 here? Okay, so you got 7 Democrats, 6 Republicans on this committee. Okay, this is the chair. Okay, now you're going to bring in people that support this legislation, and you're going to bring in people that are opposed to say it's a Democratic bill. If it makes it this far, it's probably a Democratic bill. Okay, so you're going to bring Democrat witnesses in to testify in favor of the bill, and then Republicans, if they don't like it, will bring in witnesses that are opposed and tell you what's wrong with it. Does that make sense? These are the witnesses sitting at the table. Okay. Yeah, this happens in subcommittee and at the full committee level. Okay, hearings. Now, what kind of people are going to come in and testify? Expert witnesses, okay? Average citizens, government employees, anybody that would be affected by the bill. And sometimes, guys, they will bring in people that will draw attention to it, like celebrities. Okay, so if you bring in Bill Gates, okay, Mark Zuckerberg, did you guys know who, what's the guy's name? Lars Ulrich is? Lars Ulrich. He's the drummer for Metallica. Why would they bring him in? You know what music file swapping is? Okay, back before we had Pandora and Spotify, you had this thing called Napster. Yeah, so you could download music and then share it with other people, which means the artists that sell those albums, they're losing money. So, like, is that fair? This violates copyright law and so forth. Now, people loved the music file swapping. The people did because they didn't have to pay for music. But the artists didn't. So they bring in Lars Ulrich, the drummer from Metallica. Guess who's going to show up? These people are going to show up. The media is going to show up. Okay? And that's going to draw attention to the bill. Yes? You guys know who Jamie Foxx is?
Yeah.
The actor? Now, I know probably sometime in your Catholic learning, you learned about embryonic stem cell research. Okay. And Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's. And so they were thinking that this embryonic stem cell research would help with things like Parkinson's, childhood diabetes, these sorts of things. And so they brought him in to testify. Okay, and obviously that brought a lot of attention to the bill. Okay, now, upon further research, they have found that you don't need to use embryonic stem cells. You can use umbilical cord stem cells. You can use healthy adult stem cells and so forth. Yes? Yes? Okay. Now, talking about veto, which we will talk about later on, President George W. Bush in 8 years vetoed 2 pieces of legislation. One of them was government funding of embryonic stem cell research. Okay. And Congress overrode that veto with a 2/3 majority in both houses. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this is a big part of it. Now, and a single person, an individual citizen, can have a big role to play here as well. Sometimes, you know, laws are important and they're needed. How many guys have ever heard of Megan's Law? You know what that is, Megan's Law? Okay, so Megan was a young girl that was a victim of a sexual predator. Now, the sexual predator that had moved into her neighborhood had already been arrested, went to prison, got out of prison, and moved into their neighborhood. Now, her mom and dad didn't know that this convicted sexual child predator lived in their neighborhood. They thought they lived in a safe neighborhood. Well, Megan became the next victim of this guy. And so after that happened, she went to her member of Congress and said, Mr. Congressman, there ought to be a law that tells people when these people move to a place near you. She testified in front of Congress about what happened to her daughter, Megan. And, you know, there weren't a lot of dry eyes left in the room when she was done testifying. That law was passed that said, if you are convicted of sex crime, then you have to register with the community that you live in. You guys have heard of this, right? Yeah. You can go online and see where convicted sex offenders live near you. And guess what? There's a bunch of them. Okay? I used to have a friend that used to coach here with me. He's a parole officer. And for about 4 or 5 years, his parolees were all convicted sex offenders. He worked with these people every day, and it nearly killed him. He said it was just awful. Okay, these people, and we have overcrowded jails, guys. So they let these people out. Okay, and there's halfway houses in different parts of Wichita, where if you get out of jail, you go live in a halfway house with other sex offenders until you can get back into society, find a job, and so forth. And then when you move, you got to register with the community that you live in. Okay? Good law? I mean, look, some people say, well, look, once you do your time for your crime, like you finished your sentence, that's a continuation. Like you're still being punished. You know what I mean? So those laws were challenged in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld them. In fact, in Kansas, you guys know what recidivism rates are? Yeah, like once you commit a crime, the likelihood of you committing that crime again, for child sexual predators, it's super high. Like once you do it, you're going to keep doing it. So these people, even though after they get done with their sentences in the state of Kansas, if they still deem you a threat, even though you've served your time, they can have you institutionalized in a mental hospital for as long as they think you're still a threat, which could be a very long time. And the Attorney General of Kansas, that's a Kansas law. The Attorney General of Kansas, her name at the time was Carla Stovall. She argued that in front of the Supreme Court and won. Okay, so I mean, hopefully that helps keep our kids safe. These people. Okay, and hey, listen. You know that there are people in this country that are trying to normalize pedophilia. Do you know that? Did you see that thing about this Old Dominion professor? Holy crap. Okay, he's been suspended. He hasn't been fired yet, but he's been suspended. Okay, and that's being done with taxpayer money. Holy cow. Okay. All right, so hearings. Got it? It's an important step, okay? Now, just about any government officials, industry experts, so, okay. All right, then markup, all right? Guys, this is where the real work is done. So you ask, like, who actually reads all this stuff, right? They do this in committee, okay? So this is where, like, if you're in the agriculture committee, guys, you start to become an expert on this. After a couple of years in Congress and you're reading these bills, you start to learn, especially if you're in a subcommittee. Now, markup takes place in both subcommittee and full committee, okay? But in the subcommittee, it's really important, and in the full committee. So how do I like to describe this? The markup is like when Mr. Barber or Mr. Cass or Mr. Ebright gets a hold of your test or your essay. He marks it up, okay? Fixes it, tells you what's wrong, okay? You got to get all the right language here. You got to have lawyers in the room. You're going to have to know how much this is going to cost, what impact it's going to have on existing law, all sorts of things that have to be worked through in these markup sessions, okay? Now, these people become the experts on the bill, okay? Now, once it's marked up in subcommittee, they vote whether to report it to the full committee. If they don't, they're like, yeah, we tried, nah, this isn't going to happen. It dies, okay? If they send it to the full committee, then the full committee can do all this over again. They can do new hearings. They can do more markup, okay? And then they figure out what they're going to do. So now we're in committee action. The full committee now reviews the deliberations and the recommendations of the subcommittee. Committee conducts further review, more hearings, or simply vote on it. Turn the page. So we're on page 76 now, the first one. And if they vote, they can vote 4 different ways. Pass it with a positive recommendation, okay? Any passage is reporting the bill to the full body, okay? So once it passes committee, it's going to the full House or the full Senate, okay? They can pass it with no recommendation. They can pass it with an unfavorable recommendation. This is rare. Why would they do that? Okay. We don't really think this is a good bill, but the president really wants it, and we're just going to send it to the full House so they can vote on it. It doesn't happen very often. Okay. Or they can vote it down. Okay, kill it. Yeah? How many different things can they do? Okay. Now, this is a big step. This is a key step because, like I was talking about earlier, guys, we said these members don't like to read the whole bill. So the committees are going to publish a report. The report will include the purpose of the bill, the impact on existing laws, budgetary considerations, any taxes or new taxes, increases that will be required. The report also typically contains transcripts from the hearings, as well as opinions of the committee for and against the proposed bill. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is what most people make their decision on, not reading the whole bill. They read the report. So this makes the report important, yes? Okay. Because there will be a chance for these members of Congress to debate it on the floor, to have their opinion heard about these bills. But by the time that's happening, guys, most people have already made up their mind how they're going to vote on it based on the report. Most of that is just hot air. Members of Congress talking. Nobody's listening. Okay? We could turn on C-SPAN and watch the House, and you'll see somebody talking, and there won't be anybody else in there. Okay. Now we go to floor action. All right. Now, because most bills start in the House, because most bills spend money or tax, okay, usually these bills start there. So the bill will now be placed on the legislative calendar of the House or Senate and scheduled for floor consideration or debate before the full membership. The House has several, legislative calendars that must be placed on one. The Senate, only having 100 members, considering fewer bills, has only one legislative calendar. The Speaker and the Majority Leader decide in the order in which bills will be reported and will be debated. If they don't like the bill, they can put it at a difficult time when there's not many people around and stuff like that. All right. So this is where Heidi comes in, okay, with parliamentary procedure. All right. So you introduce a bill to the House, report it to the House. The bill gets a second reading, and they can vote or debate it. Okay. They can go to a committee as the whole, which is less strict rules. Speaker steps down, can amend the wording of the bill before they dissolve and go back and debate. Don't worry about that right there, okay? Debate for and against the bill proceeds according to the rules of the House and the Senate, okay? So let's talk about this. Now, let's take a bill. We're in the House, and let's say this is a tax increase on the rich, okay? That's the bill. It went to committee. Went to the Ways and Means Committee, okay? And they voted with a positive recommendation, sent it to the House. So Nancy's going to decide what calendar this goes on. And then they're going to decide right there. Actually, after it leaves the Ways and Means Committee, it's going to go to the House Rules Committee. Here, the House Rules Committee is going to set the rules for this bill on the floor. They've got three options: open, closed, and modified. Got that? Modified. Okay. Now, open means you can change the bill. Remember, the committees, though, the people on this committee, these 13 people are the only ones that have worked on this bill. So other people are going to want to have their say. Like, hey, I don't like this part of the bill. We need to amend that. Okay, so a change to a bill is called a what? I just said it's an amendment. Okay. Ruby, Oscar, you guys remember when I talked about this with the economy and beer back with the New Deal, where they add an earmark or an amendment to it? Okay, that's a change to the bill. Okay, if it's closed, no amendments. Now, that means the work that these people did is really important because it's not going to change. The rules in the House are strict because you have 435 people in here. If you allow open amendments on every bill that comes onto the floor of the House, you're going to be there till kingdom come. You know what I mean? Like, you're never going to get anything done with 435 people changing the bill. So they have strict rules. Okay? Modified, you can amend parts of the bill, but not other parts. Does that make sense? Okay, so bill goes from the committee, passes the committee, goes to the House Rules Committee, they set the rules. Okay? And then they're going to decide how long we're going to debate this. Tax increase. How long are we going to debate it? How about 2 hours? No, we're in the House. So Republicans get 1 hour. Democrats get 1 hour. Okay? Nancy Pelosi's going to pick 10 of you, Democrats, or 6 of you, and give you 10 minutes each. And McCarthy's going to give 6 Republicans 10 minutes each. Okay? Now, we begin debate. Heidi is the president. Madam President, I'd like to be recognized for 10 minutes on this tax increase. Mr. Ebright from Kansas, you're recognized for 10 minutes. Okay? So I begin talking and railing against this bill. I don't like taxes. okay? But Ruby wants to chime in. I have 10 minutes. Ruby doesn't have any minutes. And she's like, hey, while you got your 10 minutes, will you yield a minute for me? I got something I want to say. Okay. And so Ruby makes eye contact. She said, Madam President, I would like to yield 1 minute of my time to Ruby. And then you say, Mr. Vantes, you are recognized for 1 minute. And then you yield back to me. Does that make sense?
Can you yield to somebody and then not yield back to you?
If you get the floor, you can hold it in the Senate, not in the House. They will shut you down in the House. See, guys, we're talking about strict rules in the House. The rules are in the Senate. There are no rules. Okay? Which we're got to get to. We're not there yet. Okay? So we're still in the House. We're debating this. Now, you may add amendments, and then they're going to have to vote on every amendment or change to that bill. Follow me? They got to vote on that. Okay? Sometimes these amendments are important. They're good. I mean, there's something wrong with this that came out of committee. We got to fix this. We need to amend this. Okay? Everybody following? Okay? All right. Now, where am I? I don't even know where I am. Okay. I'm on debate. Yes. Okay. Yield time, all that stuff in there. Okay. And then let's talk about the Senate. Okay? So there's two things that the House Rules Committee does here, okay? Debate, how much time, right? And then the other one is amendments. Okay, so those are the two rules, okay, that they really have to focus on, okay? So in the Senate, guys, there is no limit on amendments or debate. Okay, so in the Senate, no limit on debate or no limit amendments. Okay, what this means is, so Chuck Schumer going to introduce the bill. Okay, you've got 100 senators in the room. Madam President, I'd like to be recognized. I recognize Mr. Ebright from the state of Kansas. Okay. Thank you, Madam President. I do not like this bill. I don't like it at all. I think the taxes are too damn high. By the way, did any of you guys see that video I posted? The rent is too damn high? It's funny, isn't it? Okay. I'm just going to keep talking here for a while because I really don't like taxes. So we can talk about just about anything you want. What do you want to talk about? Yeah, we can read Greek and Exit, man. Anybody got a Bible? Let's read Genesis. Okay? Or how about, we got over here. We can read the Constitution. Oh. Mr. Ferris teach you about Alexis de Tocqueville? Democracy in America? Damn, I need to get on that guy about this because this is a really cool thing. Tocqueville came to the United Okay, you see what I'm saying, right? Like, I got the floor. Oh, it is really good, guys. So, and he should teach you about it. I'm sorry he didn't. So he was a Frenchman that came to the United States, and I think it was in like the, I want to say, like in the early 1800s. And he traveled across the United States. And from a French perspective, described the United States of America. And, well, just how different it was, different it is from European powers. You know what I mean? Like, their systems are different. Now, this is the long version. but it describes us. You know what I mean? It gives us a look at ourselves from an outsider. And it's one of the most important pieces of legislation of that century. Okay, there's smaller ones here in democracy in America. Okay, and that's good. Okay. Now, so that, guys, what I was just doing was a what? That's called a filibuster. Okay. So when a member of the floor, because there's no limit on debate. Now, one of the other things I could have done besides read Tocqueville was I could have just added endless amendments to the bill. You know what I mean? I could just talk about adding different things to these bills. As long as I can stand, as long as I can talk. Yeah. Ooh, I don't know about that rule change.
Yeah, I thought that was part of the reason we wanted to get rid of filibuster.
Oh yeah, I'll talk about that. Okay, if it's one person, the longest filibuster in history by one person was done by Strom Thurmond. He was filibustering the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Man, there's
He feels silly.
How long do you filibuster for?
Just over 24 hours.
Oh my God.
Now I could do that. I could do that.
4 hours.
You guys know I could. I'm talking every time the freaking bell rings, and I don't stop. You guys have me twice a day. I do this every day.
That's 8 hours.
You don't think I could do it?
No. Well,
You're gonna have to pay me because I don't. That would be painful, but I can do it. Now, listen. If I got Gabby with me, so me and Gabby both will hate this bill with a passion. So Gabby, I'm gonna yield the floor to you. I'm gonna go take a shower, get something to eat. You start talking, and you yield the floor back to me.
That's cheating.
No, it's not.
You yield the floor.
Okay, now here's the thing. In order to stop the filibuster, you need 60 votes to pass what's called a cloture. Okay? So it's just me and Gabby. Okay? You're probably going to be able to get a cloture. All right? Now, right now, the Senate, right, is 50 to 50. Correct?
Yeah.
So if the Republican Party wants to filibuster, they tell Chuck Schumer, say, look, you bring this human infrastructure bill worth $2 trillion to the floor. We're going to filibuster. Okay? This is what you're talking about. Democrats don't have 60 votes. So they don't even introduce the bill. Okay? Because it will be delayed forever because the Republicans can just filibuster continuously with 50 people. You know what I mean?
Exhausted.
So it's an important tool. If you're going to pass something that's going to spend $2 trillion, then you need 60 votes. Now, there is a budgetary procedure in the Senate called reconciliation. Okay? Now, this deals with budgets where you just need 51 votes. Okay, but if you're passing a law, okay, and this human infrastructure bill has a whole bunch of stuff in it. Like it's a hodgepodge of liberal, progressive wish list. Okay, you'll have to study it yourself to see if you think that's worth spending the money we don't have on. But so yes, they're talking about doing away with it. Look, you've got to have some consensus among Republicans and Democrats to pass something truly large like that. That's the goal. That's why they put the filibuster in. Okay, to do away with it does make us more democratic.
Done talking already?
If I take this,
So you-
Yeah, time flies when you want to look at it. Yeah.